Hello everybody and thank you for joining us on this Gradcracker webinar with Caterpillar. During the webinar, our aim is to find out more about Caterpillar. We will talk about who they are, what they do, and also what opportunities you, our STEM students, can apply for this year on Gradcracker. Starting with our lovely contact Lauren from the Early Careers team, we'll have an introduction to the business and also their opportunities. Hi Lauren. Lauren's an old hand at this now. She's just like, Gradcracker webinar. We will then speak to placement student David and graduates Jamie and Ellie about what life is like for them, what projects they've been involved in, what networking groups are involved in as well, and what training and development they've received, and also their future plans. I'd also like to give a special thank you to Ellie for joining us today. So she's actually on leave in Malta. So thank you for taking the time, Ellie. That shows definite commitment for joining the Gradcracker webinar. We will then end the webinar by discussing the recruitment process, and during this part of the webinar we'll also give you an insight from the students about how they use Gradcracker to apply and how they have been so successful in their careers so far. So if you've attended any of the webinars so far this season, we really hope you've enjoyed them, and you'll also have noticed the feature about where you could submit your questions before the webinar. So thank you everybody for submitting their questions. We've got some great ones that we're going to ask Lauren and the team. And don't forget, we do have some webinars coming up in the future, so you can also submit your questions for them as well. So introduction over, let's meet Caterpillar. So Lauren, welcome again, Lauren. I feel like I speak to you all the time, so it's just too great. So can you give the students who are watching a bit of introduction to you and your role at Caterpillar?
Yes, of course. So my name's Lauren. I am part of the student and graduate recruitment team here at Caterpillar, and we look after all things placement student and graduate student recruitment. In terms of Caterpillar, so who we are, for those of you who don't know, we are the world's largest manufacturer of construction and mining equipment. We also produce off-highway diesel and natural gas engines, industrial gas turbines, and diesel electric locomotives. I usually say that we are the big yellow machines, trucks, diggers, excavators that you see on construction sites when you're driving pretty much anywhere in the world. So we've just recently celebrated our 100-year anniversary earlier on in the year. So that was absolutely brilliant to be a part of and to see all of the celebrations happening around the world. We do business on pretty much every continent, but our main headquarters are in the US. But today we are just here promoting our UK student and graduate roles. We have quite a large footprint here in the UK, so we have 20 major facilities and we employ over 10,000 people across our UK sites. So if you are successful into one of our placement or graduate schemes, you will be employed by Caterpillar. But how it works is Caterpillar works as sort of an umbrella brand where we have subsidiary brands that fall underneath that umbrella, and Perkins Engines happens to be one of those brands. So there are some of our early careers positions that fall under that Perkins brand. If you're based at our site in Peterborough, which is our largest in the UK, and our site in Stafford, then you will fall under that Perkins employment brand. But all of our roles go to market as Caterpillar. We have sites all over the UK, with our main sites being Peterborough, Desford and Leicester, Peterlee, Stockton, Skinning Grove and Solihull, and then we also have sites in Northern Ireland, Springvale and Lawn as well. So that's pretty much us in a nutshell.
Lovely. Thank you very much for the introduction, Lauren. And David, if you can just duck down or move slightly, you can see the machinery behind David is what Lauren was referring to. Thank you for that. So there you go. That's what it looks like. Lauren, you've got a little bit of a different recruitment strategy this year. We've had lots of questions from students asking about the opportunities that you've got open or opening in the future. So at the moment on Gradcracker, you do have 5 placements. So they are a mix of different disciplines who can apply for them, a mix of different closing dates, of which one is today. So make sure this webinar you're going to have a quick look and get that apply to that one. And you do have a graduate opportunity on Gradcracker as well, with a closing date of the 23rd, which I believe is Thursday. trying to do some really quick
Yes.
math thing. Can you see the concentration in my face? You have more opportunities opening, don't you? So the
Yes.
kind of message today, before I move on to Lauren and ask for more details about the roles, would be the opportunities that are open now, go and apply. There will be opportunities open in the future, so make sure you follow Caterpillar on Gradcracker to be alerted to those. But Lauren, what's available now and what's available in the future?
Yeah. So we kind of have two types of schemes available within the early careers space. So we have a 12-month placement scheme, which is usually for students in their penultimate year of study to take a gap year from their studies, get some hands-on experience, and then return for their final year of university. And then we also have our 2-year graduate programs as well for those who have graduated from university. So I'd say the majority of our roles are within the engineering field or within the STEM field, but we do cover other functions such as supply chain, quality, marketing, HR, IT, and finance, for those that I can think off the top of my head, but we cover all functions. Um, and like you touched on, Carla, we are advertising our roles slightly differently this year than how we normally do it. So previously, we would post every single one of our placement and graduate roles kind of through the autumn, so now until December, and you'd have to apply for them during that period. But we've changed our strategy this year in that we're using more of a staggered approach. So, as Carla said, some of our roles are live on Gradcracker at the moment, but please keep an eye out, follow our page over the next sort of 3-4 months. There will be roles cropping up all of the time. We have around 70 to 80 placement roles in total and around 40 to 50 graduate schemes. So there'll be lots going out there, but they'll be kind of going live over the next few months. So please keep an eye out. And I guess the reason we've done that is to reduce the time period between you actually applying and then attending an interview or an assessment centre with us. We recognise it is a lengthy process within the students and graduates market. So we want to make that as short as possible, and just to make sure that all of our candidates are engaged and they know exactly where they're at in the process. So that's kind of how they're going to work. And then in terms of how our roles and where they're based, all of our roles are required to be on site full time, and that's really just for the purpose of learning and development. So that's kind of what we have and when they'll be posted.
Yeah, absolutely. When we did our prep call with David a couple of weeks ago, David was in a brilliant setting. You know, the backdrop was a factory, which just like looked absolutely amazing, but a little bit too noisy. It looks amazing, but not for a webinar. So it's definitely worth you guys being on site. I think that's a fantastic idea. So a couple of quick fire questions, if I can, Lauren. The opportunities, can students to apply to more than one opportunity?
So what I would say is we just encourage people to apply for one position. The student and graduate recruitment team look after every single role across the UK.
Yeah.
So if you apply for a role and we are able to say that you're eligible for other positions, we will signpost you in the direction of those roles if you are suitable, or for one reason or another, if you're not successful for one, then we'll see other opportunities that you're eligible for. So I would say just put one application in, and then we will do our best to signpost you to other roles.
Yeah, fantastic. And the placement program, can that be a fast track to students joining the graduate program?
Yes, indeed. So not in the engineering space, but I started off as a placement student myself back in the day.
I remember.
So mine was in HR. I did a placement in HR, and then I came back into recruitment after I graduated. And then Ellie, who was also on the call with us, Ellie did her placement scheme in design and development in DesFed. She'll tell you all about that brilliant stuff in a second. But Ellie received a conditional offer to return on our graduate program because she was absolutely brilliant and we didn't want to lose her. So yes, certainly we do try to do that as much as possible.
And you're brilliant, Lauren, as well. That's why I didn't want to lose you, and that's why you're still here. And I know that because I've dealt with Caterpillar for years and years and years. And also, after the graduate programme, you mentioned it was a 2-year training programme. So after the 2 years, are students guaranteed a job after that 2 years?
Yeah, so as long as they successfully complete the 2 year program, that'll be spent training, learning, developing, kind of building on their experiences. And then after they successfully complete the 2 year program, they'll move into a permanent position. Yes.
Lovely. Thank you, Lauren. Right, I'm going to leave you alone now, my love. Put your feet up, get a brew. So
Thanks,
I'll let
Carla.
you.
Thanks, Lauren. Really great introduction and lovely to be back again with Caterpillar. But yeah, I'm going to come and get to know our panel now and find out a little bit about your journey. So, Ellie, starting with you, could you tell us where you went to university and what you studied to start off with, please?
So I went to Coventry University and I studied a Bachelor's of Mechanical Engineering.
Fantastic. And as Lauren just mentioned, you then did a placement year with Caterpillar and have returned as a graduate. So tell us a little bit about what you did on your placement and what you're doing now.
So again, the placement was a 12 month, which I did actually apply to through Gradcracker. Did all the interview stuff, the stressful thing, which was during COVID for me, so it was a little bit different for what the
Okay.
current process is now. And with the 12 months, I was with a what we call a platform group. So it's kind of just the team that looks after the whole machine. So I did it for a wheel loader, which basically is a tractor with a big bucket on the front, easiest way to describe it. And we had like quite a lot of responsibilities, so it wasn't just like you weren't just going to grab coffee for people. It was, something's breaking on the line. How do we fix that? What's wrong? Why is it breaking? So did a lot of CAD work using Creo. The position as well for placements. No one in that team liked doing visibility, so the placements got it passed down between them each year. Which is a really important one because it's regulation just to make sure that, is our machine safe? Can the operator see around the machine? So it's a simulation, again, on your computer. You basically build the whole machine on the computer, which sometimes makes it crash, but rebuild the machine on the computer and basically pretend you're sat in the cab and see what you can see around. And then we can look into adding things like mirrors or cameras if you've not got enough visibility. Also did a bit of support on the line when we had a new product introduction onto the line, and that basically just made me stand on the line for 2 weeks, learn the whole from start to finish on how that machine's built. Was really useful actually to be like, oh, the machine doesn't just leave the factory, like it could happen to get there. So that's kind of a quick overview of my placement. Moving over to my grad scheme, I actually came back into a different team.
Okay.
So there wasn't any position in mind, but someone from another team was like, no, we know you work really well, want you to come back, come and join our team. So I'm now with the backhoe loader team, which is basically a tractor with a bucket at the front and something like an excavator at the back, so a nice big digger at the back of it. So I've learnt the first part of the machine and then had to learn the other half of it for 6 months basically. And for that, again, I was doing design stuff, like higher level, kind of putting the whole machine together on CAD. For the first 6 months, just getting back into the software because there's a lot of different software, a lot of different tracking and recording information. And then my last 6 months before I've rotated into this last position was manufacturing engineering. So this gave 6 months to basically be with the line, seeing how that line runs because it's a bit of a longer line. We get about 30 machines off that line a day, so it's fast paced, making sure if something happens we need to get it fixed because really for us priority is getting those machines to our customers. So that's kind of what I'm doing. They're both what we call on scheme, so that means I've rotated into where a current grad is. And then the rotation I'm currently doing is off scheme, which is something I've asked for and they've been able to help me with. So now I'm working with a commercial team. Just basically say, okay, we've got the machine out of the factory, but how do we sell it to people? So
Amazing. That's a lot in 2 years, isn't it, basically? That's amazing. I want to find out a little bit more detail about the graduate scheme, which we'll come to in a little while. But I just want to take a bit of a step back now, going to thinking about your placement. Because it's something that we talk about quite a lot at Gradcracker, how important placement years are and what you can learn from those. So thinking about your placement year and all those amazing things that you did, and the level of detail you were involved in. How do you feel like that benefited you returning to university, besides the fact that you had a job walking back into your final year? But I mean, did you take any of those things that you'd learned into your kind of final year academics as well?
I definitely think so. I think the first 2 years of uni, um, one of the issues you kind of have is actually being like, when will I ever use this in a job? I think that's a question that every student has probably asked themselves in a lecture. It's like, why are we learning this? When am I going to use it in a job? And actually being at the job and seeing things like the different softwares and CADs and simulations, it's like, oh, okay, no, we actually do use this in a job. Like, they're not just lying to us.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that I kind of took, and I think things like the time management and the project-based stuff was a lot easier to kind of work with other people after being at Caterpillar, because it's like, well, no, we all need to have this is your job, this is a defined job, this is the end goal. Whereas I think the first 2 years of uni, it was a little bit like hope for the best, fingers crossed, kind of just get the work done. So I would say I was definitely more productive in my last year of just like, okay, I actually know what I'm doing. And I think having that end goal that you kind of got a bit of a taster,
Yeah.
able to sit there and be like, okay, no, this is definitely what I want to be doing. Let me get this year done, get really practical, get it all sorted, and then I can get back into that industry. So I think bits and bobs from each thing, but I think it was massively helpful to do a placement year.
Absolutely. And I think that that's all really, really great examples, you know, obviously having a career at the end of it, but also a career that you're obviously really passionate about and, you know, being able to go into a business, really enjoy the experience and then return, but also have that kind of help in your final year that, you know, you've had that real world experience and, you know, you can perform better in that final year, you know, all the reasons that we always talk about the benefits of doing that placement year. So that's brilliant. Ellie, we are going to come back to you shortly to talk in more detail about the grad scheme, but thank you so much for that introduction. Jamie, coming over to you now. Could you start by telling us where you went to uni and what you studied, please?
Yep. I went to Queen's University Belfast and I studied a Masters of Software and Electrical Systems Engineering. So I kind of, at the minute I do electrical design, but this kind of was a little bit more broad scheme. So I did like embedded systems, coding, electronics as well, and communications. But yeah, I did quite a variety of things in uni, and then I did a placement year as well, but not a Caterpillar and not even in the same industry as what I'm doing now. So I'd second that placement year is very important to go to, because I learned that kind of that's not really what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Um, I did back end software engineering, so it was a little bit different than what I do now.
Amazing. And yeah, another great example, you know, it gives you the idea that it, you know, where you might not want to go, but at least you've had the opportunity to test drive that and then come back into an industry that, you know, you love now. So, and what is your current role at Caterpillar, Jamie?
Yeah, so it's electrical design engineer. So I'm working with a CAD package called ePlan, which I never used before. I used similar, but it's a little bit more smart. It integrates a lot more into the components and stuff from, you know, data sheets and things could be imported that way. And smart reports can be made from that, from the data you provide the CAD package. So here at Lauren, we kind of work with solely electric generators. At the minute, I'm really only using the diesel ones, but we do gas models here too. And with the rise of AI data centers, the workload is kind of steadily increasing here. So I'm kind of seeing the people around me kind of using my free time more, putting that a wee bit on me. Because not only are we providing the backup power to these data centers, but we're also providing prime power, as the grid can't really provide the need anymore. So obviously this is a 2-year program. I'm in just over a year now. I've worked with a senior engineer, Andy, who I've kind of shadowed since, and I haven't really had any specific training, but it's more about just kind of looking over his shoulder, seeing the expertise that he has. So this 2-year program ends, and then I move up to an associate role, associate engineer, and then he's kind of step above that. So he has got like 15 years now in the industry. He's got a lot of expertise that I can kind of suck the life out of him for. I think it's definitely important to have someone like that in the team that you can just kind of rely on for knowledge and just really important to learn the processes, not only just the physical stuff you're doing, like what is that component, but also just how does that really, how are you supposed to bring that into your design? Like he had experience working on the factory floor, so I can kind of tap into that and think, whenever I drag this component onto the screen, how does that really look in real life? So there's stuff like that you have to kind of think about that you wouldn't really get from uni. And that's kind of like what I really like about here in Lorne. You have the office building directly beside the factory. You're able to go down and see a physical product. It's nice that way. It's what I didn't have during my placement year. Just I'm just getting a program and I'm debugging it. I have no idea what all these numbers mean. It's just a bunch of parameters. And here I'm putting physical components in. I'm seeing what I'm doing. So yeah, what kind of my job is to kind of design what the guys at the factory are going to produce. So it's not only doing a circuit, it's providing reports like point-to-point connection diagrams, a panel view so they can see a physical thing. It's basically my job is to make anyone who can walk into the factory can wire this thing, can put the components in the panel. It should be anyone on this call should be able to do it. So that's kind of my job.
Even me and
Even me,
Yeah, everybody should be able to. That's the job.
Amazing.
Before I said anything, I was like,
Hello. Thinking, yeah, don't let us know this. No, that's amazing, David. It sounds like you've got such an amazing sort of mentor as well, who's really helped you. But also, is your scheme? It sounds like it must be quite different to Ellie's then, that you haven't had the same sort of rotations around the business that Ellie has, or have you had different rotations, but Andy's just been there with you every step of the way?
Well, so Andy's got a job at the minute, and so he's working on this job, and I'm just invited to every call that he's on and every meeting he goes to. So when I joined, he was at the very early stages of this job, and it was the first of kind, so everything was new. It was actually a really great experience, a great opportunity for me to kind of come in at that time. So I've taken that from the very start, where he was coming up with the first. We're on, I think, revision 18 now of the drawing, and I was coming in at revision 2, you know. So it's just kind of taking it from the start right through. But yeah, I guess I did a week down in the shop floor, which was quite interesting. It was a good eye opener, and it kind of provided me the things that he was saying maybe I wasn't fully getting. Having the guys there to be like, put that in there, and I'm like, I don't know how to. So just like, I guess, yeah, I did have a week on the floor, but I definitely think it was more mentor based, like my scheme. Yeah.
No, I love that. And I love that there's, so many different options. So that's great. But Jamie, I'm going to leave it there with you for now because David must be getting very lonely over here. So
I am, yes.
But we'll be coming back to find out more about your experiences shortly. But David, you are a placement student. So can you tell us where you are studying, what you're studying, and what your current role is at Caterpillar, please?
Afternoon. Yeah, so I'm a placement student for a year. I started July this summer, and I've just finished second year of university. I'm studying electronic engineering at Newcastle. But again, these positions, I'm on a bachelor's, but you could apply for the same if you're on a master's. But yeah, so I'm within electrification, energy systems, and CATS. So we look at, traditionally CAT's been big diesel powered. We have some crude oil generators, some crude oil machine engines, those sorts of drivetrains. But our division's more looking at sort of alternatives, and it's not just, we don't just look at things from an environmental angle. If you think the landscape for environmental legislation is changing, it's up and down. Over the last year or two, we've seen quite a shift. But it's also about when these alternative solutions are just a better fit, whether or not you're thinking about it environmentally. So you've got applications, things like mines, where machines that don't spew out pollutants are desirable, whether you're looking at it from an environmental perspective or not. It's just a better working environment. Or scenarios where it's cheaper, far cheaper to fuel and maintain an electric machine than a diesel one. So we cover quite a wide sort of range, because you might typically think with Caterpillar, we're the big mining trucks, that sort of thing behind us, loaders, but there's all sorts of divisions. I mean, as I said, we work with marine, we also work with rail. So really, it's quite a wide range of projects that's being taken on by the division at the moment. But yeah, so I primarily, I'm employed to provide sort of lab support. So for validation and testing of new components, new systems that we come up with. And that also includes diagnosing faults with prototype machines and existing older systems that we've put out in the last sort of 4 years or so. Issues that come to us, recurring patterns of failures we might see, of which luckily there haven't been many, but when there's things to be investigated, Caterpillar have a process and everything's looked into thoroughly. And part of that for me is I get to diagnose things, go through the schematics, test probe, measure, and yeah, it's sort of like I get to do a bit of a logical fault finding process, which for me is quite satisfying. But that is mixed now with a bit of design work. So even though I'm primarily supposed to be in the lab, I've also taken on a little bit more on the design side. So at the moment we have, hopefully I'm not breaking any confidentiality here, but we've got a prototype electric excavator in the works, and I've been brought on to sort of help develop some of the electrical architectures. So parts of the wiring loom, the interface between battery and the machine, and how you marry what is ultimately a machine that was designed for combustion engine with a new green power sort of drivetrain. So yeah, it's quite a mix, really. I mean, just this week I've got quite a bit of CAD work with. I think Ellie mentioned Creo possibly before, but
yeah.
I've got some of that working out, and that wasn't originally in the brief for my placement, but it's a case of whichever area you'd like to grow in within reason. You can talk to your manager, you can talk to supervisor, the people around you, and say, would you mind if I take on a bit of this work, or have you got time?
Yeah.
Do you mind if I sit with you on this one and try and get involved in a different sort of project? And it's been very accommodating.
Yeah, that was what I was going to ask actually, David, when you said, oh, you're doing more on the design side, if that was something that you kind of said, oh, can I do a little bit more in this area? What can I X, Y, and Z? And it seems like that's very much the case, that you've gone to people and said, oh, I'd like exposure here, or I'd like to do something on this, and you've been given the opportunity to do that. Would you say that was right?
Yeah, no, totally. I mean, it's the way we work here. We're also connected. We use Teams, the platform, so everybody instant messages each other, which even if you're not in the same area of the office, it makes everyone feel quite connected. I mean, I must say, everybody that I've interacted with has been quite open. Everybody's helpful. Everybody's a good laugh, which means that it's naturally easier to move around areas of your division, because you're not having to send formal emails and putting in requests to be transferred to a different division. You just have an informal conversation with somebody and say, look, I haven't tried this area out before. I'd like to sort of broaden my experience as much as possible. Can I have a go? Or will you take me on for a week? Or will you send a few jobs my way? And then if you need help, if you've got questions that you need answering, you just Zoom call them, or you just go over to them and have a chat. It's great.
Yeah.
That's
brilliant.
It's quite nice to have a bit more of an informal setup.
Yeah.
And Lauren, I'm guessing this is a type of person that you're looking for, the people that are going to really put themselves forward, put themselves out there, want to get involved. The whole program's probably set up to really accommodate that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And I think for us, we're really looking for people with a good attitude and a willingness to learn, I guess. You get out of your placement and graduate scheme what you put into it. And David's obviously one of those people that goes and seeks out opportunities. And I think the more you can do that, the better.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lauren. Thank you very much for that, David. We are going to come back and find out a little bit more detail about some of the work you've done, but I'm going to come back to Ellie now. So you gave us a really great overview of your rotation so far on the graduate scheme. If you had a particular project or a particular highlight about your experiences in the last 12 months, what would you tell us about?
I think one of the main projects that's kind of stuck with me on my grad scheme is probably supporting the new product coming onto the line. I say new product. Obviously, a lot of our stuff, it's all about customers, making sure we give them what they want. And for the backhoe, we have kind of our biggest backhoes are quite customer specific. At least one of the configurations is basically one customer in America that buys these, and that's it, right? And they haven't been updated for a while. So kind of summer this year, we basically did like an annual product update, was what we called it. And the idea was I was there to support that getting onto the line because we had new parts, new ways of assembling things, which there's a lot to do when that happens. So kind of my first main bit of the project was to make sure that each of the stations had the parts in there, because they don't have the parts, the line's going to stop, we can't build. Making sure they had the tools in there, and then they had their what we call SWERs, so standard work element sheet, little bit of a mouthful. It's basically like if you're building Lego, it's the instructions, right?
Yeah, okay.
So what you're doing, if you need a tool for it, any like specifics like torque and things, but all of the tools are set to the right thing, so they basically just have to pick the right one up. So just making sure they have all of the correct equipment. And then when it actually came onto the line, we had a little bit of an issue with some of our smaller parts not being in the right places. So I was probably looked like I was running around like a headless chicken. I wasn't. My head was on, but I was running around. Just trying to find basically, again, it was like making sure that line could function. So trying to find parts that they didn't have. So things like bolts and washers, just little bits where it's just like, oh, we didn't pick that up. And then a lot of that was about, okay, you know, it's great, this has happened, it's a bit of an issue, we fixed it. How are we going to make sure this doesn't happen again? And I think that's the one thing that we do try and do at CAT, that it's like, okay, we've had an issue, let's get it sorted. But how are we going to stop that happening again? So a part of that, whilst the machines were going down the line, because I think we sent about 7 down at the same time, because super smart idea. Like trial by fire for 2 weeks is basically what we decided to do there. But like with that, whilst we're going down the line, we were recording any issues we found. So anything small where maybe it's only happened on one machine where they've picked up the wrong part or that kind of thing, to anything really big where things have been like assembled or routed incorrectly, or things won't go together because things aren't long enough, stuff like that. So we basically put that on a big SharePoint list, kind of the Microsoft Forms kind of thing. And then each day they kind of went through and saw who it was assigned to, and basically the kind of 2 weeks to month after the machines had gone down the line, all of the teams were then working together to say, okay, we need to, you know, look into this. Is it just we need to change the image on that worksheet? Do we need to make sure they've got the right tool? Do we need to make sure the parts on the rack? And the one thing that was really useful for that was I worked with a lot of people that have been in manufacturing engineering, and that's all they've done at CAT so far. So actually understanding what belongs to who, just weren't sure. So they started doing work that maybe wasn't stuff for them to actually do. So basically being in all those other rotations and other teams, I was able to kind of actually bring the feel like I was useful basically. Bring the knowledge and be like, okay, that's not your guys' problem, like send this over to this person, like let them do it. If they need to come back to us, they can. So I think kind of 2 weeks starting was just making sure the line was ready, and then the next 2 weeks to a month was a bit of firefighting. But basically being like, you know, here's my information, I know that's not for you guys, send it to this person or this person. So I think that's the one that stuck with me. I mean, the machines are building fine now, so it clearly weren't enough. We're getting
That's amazing. Yeah. I think that's a really, really great example, that project, for a number of reasons. You know, it shows the amount of responsibility that you're given really quite early on. It also shows the benefit of doing the rotations in the program, because you were able to then contact the relevant people and point people in the right direction. And it also gives you so many soft skills from what you've talked about there, you know, the amount of different people that you were communicating with. So yeah, I think that's a really great example of the projects that you could get involved in at CAT, you know, at this stage of your career, and how much you're learning in a really short space of time in that one, you know, like you said, about 4 or 5 weeks, really. So that's a really great example of you know what a project could look like at CAT on your particular scheme. So thank you very much for that, Ellie. Jamie, going to head over to you now again to find out a little bit more detail about, you know, your work. I know you've kind of given us an overview and suggested that even Carla and I would be able to understand some of the things that you put together. I don't think we would, but tell us a little bit more about. Sorry. Tell us a bit more about what you've been up to, and something again for you that kind of really stands out about some of the work you've done so far.
Well, again, I kind of just worked on one project with Andy. So up until about a couple months ago, that's kind of all I did. It was kind of the whole year. But now I'm being utilized for a few other projects, and one that I can take under my belt myself. So that's quite interesting to have kind of the end of his project getting wrapped up while I'm starting to, you know, start my own project myself. So I've been able to take the expertise that he's given me, and kind of reflecting on what we've been through and how can I prevent the stoppages that he's had to come into my project. So yeah, just to have early design reviews and stuff like that. Apart from that, I've kind of got myself involved in CAT like extracurricularly as well, which I think is a good thing that CAT does as well. So we've got an education pillar here in Lauren, which I've got involved with. We're getting a wee STEM workshop together. I think it's just about, again, what Dave and Lauren were saying about eagerness, like anything you really want to put yourself forward with, you can. Like myself, I've got kids, and kind of teaching's kind of always been in the back of my mind, but kind of went into engineering. So I kind of always like to think about inspiring kids of the future. So it's kind of a good opportunity for me to come into that. So we're working on that together at the minute, which is quite nice. Other things like walking challenges and stuff that we do here. Just really good to get involved in stuff like that. Not only with my projects as well. Sorry, I'm rebounding off what I said firstly. I've been working with Andy, but any chance I get to listen in to other projects that are going on with the other senior engineers, getting myself in there, helping out with them, so then I can bring the expertise I've learned from Andy into their projects, stuff like that. Just eagerness, I think, is really important here, and people are really welcome that.
I think that's absolutely, and it's come across so far in everything that we've talked about, and all of you, you know, how eager you are and how much you're putting yourself forward. And those extracurricular things that you've mentioned, Jamie, are so important as well, to be able to give you so many other types of skills, meet other people in the business, you know, kind of network with different types of people. So I think that's a really, really important point to bring up. So thank you very much. David, coming back to you. So obviously you've told us a little bit about what you've been up to so far, but could you kind of tell us what the rest of the placement's going to look like, if you even know that much yet? You know, tell us a bit about what you're expecting.
Well, yeah. So I'm obviously far more junior than Jamie or Ellie. It's been 3 and a bit months now, but there are sort of several long-term projects that the team will be working on for foreseeable that I've been able to sort of dip into. I mean, some placements, so a lot of the placements on Peterborough site, we all have lunch together. So I get a bit of experience of what everybody else is doing. And I know a lot of the people I talk to that are more on the combustion side, the more Perkins oriented, some of them have like a year-long project, which is slightly more academic. But obviously it depends on your role and the requirements of that role. So for me, it's more pieces of work that come into your inbox. And what I find happens is that as you spend more time working with people, they figure out, I mean, obviously I'm still very junior, they figure out what I get on best with, and they will send bits of work over to me accordingly. And to what Jamie was saying before, I mean, I've asked and I'm added into several weekly meetings for different projects. Not that I'm going to contribute much to them, at least at the moment, but it's really valuable just to be able to listen in and have that opportunity to tune in to something different every once in a while and see whether there's anything occasionally you can draw or think about from those. I mean, in terms of projects, like I said, I've not been here long, but I was trusted. I mean, they trust you to sort of get on with your work. They don't, unless you ask for help, they don't sort of look over your shoulder. There's definitely support available, and I have somebody that sort of looks after me, but they give you that independence. So, for example, I don't know how many students here will be familiar with EV-oriented stuff, but I've been sort of tasked with coming up with a new pre-charge circuit, which is part of our power electronics module, and you need it in any sort of electric vehicle on highway, off highway, and yeah, so it's just been a case of selecting components, validating them. I've personally I've been given free rein to come up with testing plans. So we have electrical testing facilities here, we have battery development lab, and I've had to communicate with different parts of the facility to see whether I can use their equipment, and just things like I've been doing electrical tests and then taking thermal readings, taking electrical data, and again, it's reaching out to people and pulling in sort of resources and asking for other people's help to get a project done. And at the moment, that's pre-charge circuit I've been working on, those components. I'm happy that selection is correct, but at the moment I'm talking with, as of last week, I'm talking with external test houses so that we can get it certified, signed off, and proper sort of scientific data. So I've been doing more of an experimental type job, but obviously at some point it has to be properly certified. And I've never dealt with test houses, those sorts of external companies. And again, in reaching out and communicating to them, I spoke to some of my colleagues about, what plans have you sent off before? What sort of documents do you need? And it's just a case of walking through these new processes, new experiences, and sort of pulling in help from other people on site.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think that's a really great thing that you've said there, about, that project specifically that you've kind of been involved from start to finish, well, almost finished. Fingers crossed.
Can't rest yet.
But,
go on. Well, if there's a dearth of failure of Caterpillar pre-charge circuits, then I'll be out of here.
We know who to blame, don't we? But it's communicating with so many different people. Like you said, you didn't know how are you going to know about test houses and these types of things that. But you've done exactly what you need to do. You contact the people that do know, you use their knowledge, and then that helps you to be able to do it yourselves. There's nothing worse than sitting there struggling on your own, is there?
I should mention as well that whenever I've needed, so I've had to work with high voltage components, battery packs, to carry some of this testing out. And at some point you'll run into a wall where you need training to do certain things. And I talked to my manager, and they've just been happy to send me on whatever training courses I need to do, which is quite valuable really, because not only does it let me have more options, let me have free rein as to what I do in work, and gives me options to how I conduct tests. It's also, again, it's another string to the bow. It's good experience, and I like the fact that there's no sort of quibbling about it's going to cost a certain amount to do this course. Generally, so far, it's just been if you want to do it and you think it'll be helpful, you're free to do it. And there's no worry about taking work time to do that, or it's all very accommodating.
Absolutely. And I think that's brilliant that you've got the opportunity to do that. And I saw Jamie and Ellie were both nodding along then, completely agreeing with everything you said. So I think that's really lovely that you are able to just say, okay, I'm learning this new thing, can I have a bit of extra help? And it's just put forward for you. So thank you, David. It's been really great hearing about all the projects so far. Carla is going to come back in now because we've kind of got a related question, haven't we?
We have, thank you. And Ellie, I must say that if Gradcracker had a production line, I think we'd do it in a similar way with you. You know, just like stick 7 on, see how it goes, muddle through it together, give it a couple of weeks, I'm sure we'll be fine. When you were saying it, I was like, that is very like us. That's how we do it. So you guys have spoken about some fantastic projects that you've been involved in, which is really good to know. So I've got a really good question for you, Lauren. So from the staff at RGU University, he's asking about specific projects and modules that really stand out to you as part of the CV or the application process. What could students highlight?
So what I would say is that a CV is important, but from our perspective and our process, I think possibly a more important stage is the video interview part of the process. So I'll touch on that in more detail when we come to our application process. But I guess as long as you meet the essential criteria that's listed out in the job advert that you've applied to, then you'll be invited to attend a pre-recorded video interview. And it's at this part of the process where you really want to talk about those projects that you've been involved in, any kind of real life experience that you've had in relation to the job that you've applied to. So I think particularly around soft skills and certain competencies where you've had to work as part of a team, or you've had to use your initiative, or there's a problem and you've been able to solve it. I think making sure that you talk to those kinds of examples in your video interview. And then any extracurricular activities that you might do, any societies that you're part of at university, or any work experience that you may have, whether it's relevant or whether it's not. I think it's really important to talk about all of those in the video interview part of our process.
You want to know everything, Lauren, basically.
Yeah, we do.
If it all to what Lauren was saying on the webinar next year, right? Not everything. Too much detail. Perfect. Yeah, like Lauren mentioned, we'll be coming back a little bit later on to discuss the application process in more detail, stage by stage. But we've just got one final question for the panel. So if I'm going to hand back to you before we then go on to Lauren and speak to Lauren in more detail.
Thank you very much, Carla and Lauren. So finally, Ellie, I'm just coming back to you to finish off. What we're going to do is we're just going to talk about the other opportunities or other things that you've been involved in at Caterpillar. So whether this is a social side of working for the business, or some of the things like Jamie mentioned about the extracurriculars and other activities. So let me know what you've been up to in that sort of area, Ellie.
So we have something called employee resource groups, which normally when I speak to university students, I describe them as like equivalent of societies.
Yeah.
The idea is it's just loads of different kind of diversity, inclusion, that kind of group thing. One main one, which is probably a bit more directed to this age group, is young professionals. It's you kind of go into a company, and like Laura mentioned, we've been around for 100 years, which also means we do have people that have been at the company for a very long time. And obviously with that, you sometimes go in as like just like fresh out of uni or like studying a uni course, and you're like, I look like a baby compared to everyone. And you're like, oh, they're going to think I don't know much. And like realistically, there's potentially 10, 20, 30 other people at the facility that feel the same way.
Yeah.
So young professionals is kind of there to be like, here are the other people that feel the same way. You're not alone. You're okay. And they organise loads of things like social activities, just so you have a bit of connection outside of work. Especially a lot of placements and grads move to new areas to do the scheme. Yeah. So it's quite nice. A lot of them, it's like, let's go and see what the town's like. Let's go and do this activity together. We also do the professional development side. So there's a lot of facility tours that are often organised, especially for Desmond and Peterborough, we're an hour away from each other. It's obviously not that journey, and it's a whole other facility you can go and see. We also have Women's Initiative Network, which kind of same equivalent. It's trying to support women in a very male-dominated company, and working on that professional development. I think a lot of the training as well is kind of out there to like support, especially for younger people coming into the company. Realistically, you don't know much about it. Some of these people have been in industry for 30, 40 plus years. So there's loads of different training, different facility tours. We also have a lot of managers that come and speak and kind of explain, how they've got there, what they do. So that's some of the things, kind of mainly RGs, and then we also do offer STEM leadership, at least at my facility. I think we offer it at other places as well. that kind of gives you the chance of, you know, you've learnt that information, you've been at uni, you've started a job. It'd be really good to go and support the next generation coming into the industry. So there is so many opportunities, and it's really, you can get involved with as much or little as you want.
Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Ellie. David, you look like you were going to jump in and say something during that to add on to it.
No, well, no, it's just it's the same with our facility here at Peterborough. There's plenty of opportunities to do to be involved with STEM ambassador work as well. So whether that's going into schools or it's mostly work with young people, or sometimes we'll go over to Anglia Ruskin, which is a university quite close to us. It's just about sort of getting people involved, and it's totally up to you whether, to what extent you get involved with it or not. I mean, some people are too busy, some people find it full on, and especially moving from uni to a 9 to 5, you realize, oh, I have no time anymore. And so, you know, it might not be for you. You know, you might feel
welcome
like
to the rest of your life there, David.
Yeah. I know, but 40 years of this to go.
You're a long time old. Don't get me
Yeah,
started.
I mean, so as an example for that as well, it's a lot of those options you can do. They're not all at weekends or in the evenings. They are, some of them, like the Lego League, I think at the moment is being run in afternoons with schools. So the friends that I have here that are involved with that, they have 1 day a week, I forget which it is, but they leave earlier and they do that in the afternoon. And again, you're still paid for that. It's not, you know, it's not any extra burden you're really taking on. It's just a case of whether you want to get involved with it or not. And obviously it's good to put on your CV.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, David. Jamie, have you got anything to add? I know obviously you told us about some of the activities you were involved in earlier, but is there anything else that you had to add before we move on to finding out how we get the job at Caterpillar?
No, I'd just say the Cat is really good for this extracurricular stuff, and just anything that goes, you're able to apply for. I think the big one in the office at the minute is the weight loss challenge. I'm not involved in that, but some of the guys get really competitive. The boys doing like weekend fasts and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, no, it's a really good environment here for stuff outside of work.
Amazing.
Jamie, we have a it's not quite as extreme as that, but it's more of like a kilometers tracker. If you want to get involved with it, it's called Activate. It's another one of these sort of groups. I think technically it's an ERG, but it's just a competition between employees to see who can rack up the most kilometers cycling or running. Or there's usually something like that running. But I'll say involve scales.
This year we did a walking challenge. It was our site and the Springville site, so the two ones in the north here. And basically you had to walk virtually from like all around all of the sites in the UK. So starting at the bottom of England, you're going up to Scotland, and then you're virtually walking across the sea to Larne, and then to Springville. So that worked out 1,068 miles, and the target was 6 weeks. And because we were so competitive, we just did it with just over 3 weeks to spare. There was a team of 4 of us did it. So,
did nothing but walk for 3 weeks.
Boys doing full marathons. I did a half marathon myself in that time.
Oh my goodness.
No, it gets pretty competitive. Like,
I love it. Thank you so much, everybody. It's been great hearing about all your experiences. But yeah, I'm going to head back over to Carla and Lauren now.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks. So thanks everybody for joining us today. I could just sit and talk to you all day. We're going to now talk about the application process, Lauren. But I do have a specific question and Caterpillar and how important that is. But have you got any opportunities that are going to be open around the sustainability area?
Yes, we do. So I believe roles within EHS or environmental health and safety and sustainability, I think we have a few 12-month placement opportunities specifically in those areas. But what I would say is that in terms of sustainability, I think every role within Caterpillar kind of touches it or has a part to play in our entire sustainability strategy. So we have 7 goals that we've set out as a global organisation that we want to hit by 2030 in terms of sustainability. So they're in areas such as water, waste, energy, safety, and also remanufacturing as well. And sustainability is also one of our 5 core values. So I think although we definitely do have roles that are kind of entirely within that space, pretty much every role that we have across Caterpillar touches sustainability in some aspect or another. But what I would say for those types of roles, or if you are wanting to touch on that in your application, some advice that I would give that we have seen before is we don't want our sustainability strategy just read back to us from our website. We've seen it quite a lot. But make sure you do some kind of deeper research into it and try and kind of relate it back to you. If you've got any real life examples or any experiences that you have that you can relate to back to, just to show your passion in that area, then that'll be really well received in your application.
Perfect. Thank you, Laura. And tell me more about the application process. So you mentioned about the video interview stage, but what are the other stages, and kind of approximately how long does the whole process take?
So initial application is just a CV. It's a really, really brief application. You get asked a few questions just around what you're studying, what you're on target to achieve, what locations you'd be willing to work at, those types of questions. So if you meet the essential criteria that's outlined in the advert, and that is things like you're studying a relevant degree, you're in the right year of study to complete a placement or a graduate scheme, you have right to work in the UK at your point of application, then as long as you meet that essential criteria, you will always be progressed onto the video interview part of the process. And that is a pre-recorded video interview. So you'll be asked around 4 questions, and it just lets us get to know you a bit better in support of your CV and your application. So you do get some preparation time for each of the questions that you're asked, and you can re-record your answer once if you're not happy with your response. But what I would say is that in that part of the process, it's super important to be as authentic as possible. We all live in a world now where AI is very much up and coming, and it's emerging at a rapid rate, and we see AI used a lot in that video interview process. But our stance on it is that we don't want you to pop our questions into ChatGPT, for example, and then read off a script. We just want your true, authentic self. And it's hard when you're talking to a laptop. It's not the same as a face-to-face interview, but just try and be passionate and enthusiastic about what you do. And yes, feel free to use AI to enhance your answers and help you that way, but don't solely rely on it for the video interview aspect. I think that's super important to us, and we just want to get to know you better as a person. And then from that video interview stage, we then shortlist to attend an on-site assessment centre with us. So it's a full day you'll be spending at the facility that you've applied to. You'll do a group activity, which is quite a fun task that you probably wouldn't be expecting, but eases you into the day. You'll then deliver a presentation that you've prepared before the assessment centre, and then you'll have an interview on that day as well. So we try to make them as relaxed as possible, just to kind of make everyone feel comfortable and to showcase their best self. And then the assessment centre is the final part of the process. But because of that staggered approach that we've implemented this year with our adverts, the application time and the time from applying to the assessment centre should be significantly shorter. So what I would say is that the entire process should probably take around 2 to 3 months, as opposed to, I think, 5 to 6 months that it can in some cases.
Perfect, thank you, Lauren. And for somebody who has looked at many applications over the years, and somebody who's also been through the process, what hints and tips would you give? How can students be successful?
So I'd say first and foremost, make sure you do your research into Caterpillar and what we do and who we are and what our values are and things like that, and try and drop them into your application. And then again, I can't stress it more, but we want your true authentic self. Please just be yourself. Don't be afraid to showcase how great you are and how passionate you are about what you do. Like we touched on earlier, I think we just want people with really great attitudes. We know that you've got a certain level of technical competence doing the wonderful, brilliant degrees that you're doing at university. And you may be tested on that technical competence throughout our process. But I think from a recruitment perspective, we just want your true self to shine through in the process and to make sure that you're really passionate about what you do.
Brilliant. Perfect. Thank you very much, Lauren. Brilliant answer. And don't forget, like I mentioned at the beginning of the webinar, there are some opportunities open on the Caterpillar Hub on Gradcracker. So make sure you get those applications in. There is one with a closing date of today. And so straight after this webinar, go and have a look, go and find out a little bit more before you apply. And don't forget as well, what we said is follow Caterpillar as well to be alerted to the new opportunities which are opening in the future. And they'll be a mix of your undergraduate and your graduate opportunities as well. So there's some there now, but there's lots and lots and lots more to come. So thank you, everybody. And like I mentioned, this webinar will be on the Caterpillar Hub as of tomorrow, and we'll also break it down into bite-sized chunks as well, so you can go and find out more from all of the different students' experiences that they've had. And the last thing I was going to say, join us on Thursday this week, where we're joined by ACON Engineering Consultancy, and that's at 2 o'clock. But for now, thank you very much, Caterpillar. You've been amazing, and we'll speak to you all soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
us.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.